Okay, so you walk past it every single day, but you probably never ever think of it as a piece of technology. I'm talking about tree bark. Yeah, we all see it as, a tree's skin. But what if I told you it's actually this super sophisticated active engine?
No, really, just let that sink in for a second. What if it wasn't just there by accident? What if it was actually designed to do something incredible? What if it's running a kind of program, an algorithm, right there in plain sight for all of us to see?
Let's really dive into that idea. Because today, we're going to look way past the surface of this secret engine. We're going to completely challenge that old view of bark as just some passive, boring shield.
Right. Our default setting is to see it as armor. It protects the tree from bugs, from the sun, from getting bumped into, and hey, it does all that stuff, for sure. But the core idea we're digging into today is that that's only half the story. The other half is that bark is an active, functioning system. And that brings us to this absolutely fascinating concept that pulls together all these different observations from biology and, of all things, hydrology. It's called the bark algorithm. And trust me, it's going to completely reframe how you look at a tree trunk from now on. So what is it? Okay, at its heart, the bark algorithm is a system where geometry creates function. In plain English, the specific shape and texture of a tree's bark, all those ridges, all those cracks, that roughness, it isn't random. Nope. It's basically a micro-infrastructure, perfectly designed to capture valuable stuff from the air and deliver it exactly where the tree needs it most, its own roots. This whole algorithm works in 3 simple steps. First up, capture. A tree's bark, with its complex surface, acts like a giant passive filter. Its texture is perfect for snagging all these tiny particles floating around in the air. We're talking dust, pollen, and even microbes. Then you get step 2, root. So when it rains, the bark's geometry goes to work, channeling all that water into these tiny vertical rivers that flow down the trunk. This water picks up all those particles it just captured, creating this nutrient-rich slurry. It's a process called stem flow. And finally, step 3, enrich. This concentrated stem flow becomes a precision delivery system. It pours this incredible payload of water, nutrients, and good microbes directly into the soil right at the base of the trunk. It basically creates a super fertile hotspot right where the tree's most important roots are waiting. Now, this isn't just some cool story. The real power of the bark algorithm concept is that it leads to these really clear, measurable predictions that scientists can actually go out and test in the real world. In science, these are called falsifiable hypotheses. It's a fancy term that just means you can design an experiment to try and prove the idea wrong. And if you try your hardest and you can't prove it wrong, well, that makes the theory a whole lot stronger. So, what exactly does the bark algorithm predict we'll find? Okay, let's start with capturing stuff from the air. The first big prediction is that rougher bark should be way better at the capture step. To be specific, the hypothesis says bark with deeper cracks and ridges should capture at least 20% more dust and pollen than smoother bark on a similar-sized tree. The algorithm also makes a prediction about the soil itself. Since it's designed to route water right to the base, we should be able to measure at least a 15% increase in soil moisture right near the trunk compared to the soil just a little bit further away. And it's not just about more water. Remember that payload of microbes we talked about? The third hypothesis predicts that this algorithm is actively changing the soil's biology. It should lead to a 25% difference in the types of microbes living in the soil near the trunk. It's literally seeding its own soil with life. How cool is that? So look, this is all fascinating science, but what does it actually mean for us? Why does understanding this algorithm matter in the real world? Well, it turns out it could fundamentally change how we design our cities and manage our ecosystems. This slide right here shows the huge shift in thinking perfectly. For decades, right, urban planners have picked trees based on how they look. Does it provide good shade or does it have pretty flowers? But the algorithm view says, hang on, we should be choosing them for their function. We could be selecting specific trees with specific bark textures to actively filter more air pollution or to better manage stormwater runoff. And the practical uses are just incredible. We could use what we might call high algorithm trees to create natural drainage zones for stormwater, or to build biodiversity corridors for tiny things like lichens and microbes.
We could even feed this data into smart irrigation systems that know which trees are naturally better at watering themselves. It's genius.
And if we take this one step further, this powerful idea from nature opens up a whole new universe of what's called biomimicry, which is really just about learning from and copying nature's brilliant designs to solve our own problems.
I mean, just imagine this. Algorithmic buildings. We could design the walls of our buildings with bark-like textures that could passively pull moisture out of the air, scrub pollutants, and then channel that water to feed green roofs or planters. Our buildings could become active, living parts of the ecosystem.
So the next time you walk past a tree, I want you to stop and take a closer look at its bark. You're not just looking at a passive shield anymore. You're looking at an ancient, elegant, and incredibly effective algorithm at work. And it just might hold the blueprint for a greener, smarter future for all of us.